This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, looks like we're at 6 o'clock. Do we feel like we have a quorum here? I know Johnny Olson wasn't able to attend.
He's not, but it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we still have some people joining too. Commissioner Stevens, do you know if Tricia was planning on, Councilmember Canonico was planning on participating?
Thought she was, because I think that until next Tuesday, the current council is still in place. Like, I think that they leave the new council gets sworn in next Tuesday. So, but she didn't say whether she was attending or not.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We still have a quorum. We still have 8.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, then we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. This is the North Front Range Transportation Air Quality Planning Council meeting. I call this meeting to order and welcome everyone here. And we will, do we still do the Pledge of Allegiance online? I don't know if we have it. All right, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, I'm okay if we do.
Okay. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America, and to the republic for
which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
We'll show a flag
not in unison. Hard to be in unison online, but thank you everyone for that. So we'll move to our next agenda item, which is public comment. And we would have 2 minutes for anyone in the public who is online to speak their mind. Is there anyone here for public comment? Please raise your hand or unmute yourselves if you're here for public comment. Okay, it's unusual for us to have anyone in a remote meeting to do that. So it looks like no one has done so. So we will close public comment for the evening and we will reopen it at our next meeting. Our next agenda item is council member announcements. Does anyone have any announcements to make? This can be, activities that are happening in your community that you want us to be aware of, any, new members, or if you're a new member to this board, or you brought staff that's new, we'd love to hear about that. Bill Jenkins, council member.
Yeah, I'll just repeat what I said last night at the I-25 coalition meeting, and that is, along with Fort Collins and other communities along Harmony Road and Weld County, I guess it's Weld County 74, there is going to be a corridor study. The technical folks are finalizing that, and it should start in early this year. So once we have the results from that corridor study, we will share it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bill. We'll look forward to that. Anyone else? I think Elizabeth, was there someone from Loveland who wanted to introduce the new Public Works Director potentially, or?
Yes, Nicole Hahn with the City of Loveland. I just wanted to share
Mhm.
that Will Jones will be joining the City of Loveland. His first day is Monday, so he'll be starting next week. So we're excited.
Wonderful. Thanks, Nicole. And is your representative from Loveland here tonight, or will be here tonight?
Yes,
Mhm.
Councilor Light Kovach is here on behalf of Mayor McFall.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Thank you. All right. So any other announcements before we move on? All right, seeing none, we will move to our consent agenda. And there's a couple items on our consent agenda. Approval of the minutes from our last meeting in December, and then the quarter 3 2025 unaudited financials. So if no one wants to remove any of those items from the consent agenda, we can consider those en masse, and I would take a motion on that, please.
Move to approve consent agenda.
I
I'll
will
second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Who was the second?
Liz Hyde.
Liz Hyde. Okay, and the motion came from Commissioner Scott James. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any discussion before we vote? All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed is a no. Anyone abstaining from this vote? Okay, the ayes have it, and so that consent agenda passes. Our next item is agenda item number 5, which is the Air Pollution Control Division, and that is a written report. Number 6 is the North Front Range NPO Air Quality Program updates from Dina Wojcik, and that is a handout. In the handout, is Dina here with us today?
I am.
Okay. Is there anything you want to share with us this evening, Dina?
Well, there's a number of highlights, so I can run through it or you can take a look. But I really wanted to point out just a couple of things if I could.
Sure, please do.
All right. I really wanted to highlight that the Air Pollution Control Division released their 2025 GHG emissions reduction progress report to the legislature. And there are a couple of key tables in it, just I wanted to bring to your attention. So that's on page 2 of my report. So yeah, so in the top one, table 1 from the report, you'll see kind of in the middle transportation. You'll see that, these are the projections as they understand them through 2023. And you'll see in recent years, they're kind of hovering right around, 28, 29, 30 teragrams per carbon dioxide equivalent. But then you look at the projections in table 2 below it. You'll see that the projections for transportation, they're not really projected to fall until 2035 maybe. And what's really interesting then is if you move to figure 2 at the bottom of the page, I just want to call out that transportation is the highest greenhouse gas contributing segment of Colorado's economy, and that started somewhere around 2022. And it's projected, it's the it's the green line, if you can see the green line, projected to continue to be the single largest GHG contributor in the state. So out of that, in combination with the table figure 3 on the following page, Colorado indicated that while it was close, it did not meet the first of many greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. And so that's highlighted by that first star there in 2025. And so you'll see that, we didn't hit that star. We are above it. And so in combination with, transportation being the single largest greenhouse gas emitter contributor, not meeting the targets, you can expect that they're going to be looking harder at transportation over the years and looking for places where they can secure additional reductions. I will highlight also that there is a section in that report that came out that includes some additional supplemental recommendations for future legislation. And so that's linked there on page 14 of the report. So I would have you take a look at that if you haven't already in your spare time. I'm sure you've got many, many things to do. So I do expect that we see some things in this legislative session related to that. The other thing I really wanted to highlight is that, kind of related to that, we saw the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration proposing to roll back some fuel economy standards for light duty vehicles. And so that actually is going to make things worse for us in terms of trying to meet whether it's greenhouse gas goals or ozone goals. And so there's a comment deadline, and I know it's really coming up here fast, but that's January 20th of 2026. And so that might be something you might want to consider in how that impacts transportation planning in your area, as well as air quality planning. So those are probably the biggest two points that are in that report, but I'm happy to take questions on that or anything else that's in the report.
Thank you, Dina. Any questions for Dina? Okay. I'm not seeing any. I think the report was pretty detailed, and if questions come up, I think you can, ask them later or send an email to Dina or to Elizabeth, and appreciate that, Dina. Thanks for your report.
You're welcome.
So we'll move on to the Regional Air Quality Council. I am the representative to that. I will just briefly go over what we did at that meeting. We went over the budget for the RAC, which gets money from CMAQ and DRCOG, but also from local governments and other sources. We did sort of a review of all the programs that are administered by the RAC. So those are programs like Engines Off, which is anti-idling, Simple Steps for cleaner air, the Mow Down Pollution Program, which provides subsidies for people buying electric mowers and electric lawn equipment, the Clean Air Champions Program, the Clean Air Auto Repair, which is one of the programs hopefully we'll be getting in our region because of the funding that the RAC received from NAPME. And one of the legislative things that they talked about in that meeting was a potential $10 fee on gas-powered equipment. So that would be someone who is buying a new gas-powered mower or gas-powered lawn equipment would pay a $10 fee. And for those folks who don't know, people can get the 30% discount on new electrical lawn equipment, and that it runs through the end of the year. So I don't know if there'll be legislation to continue that rebate for people buying electric, but certainly it looks like the legislature will be considering a bill to add a fee onto gas-powered. And then just wanted to remind people that there is a blueprint that's sort of being fleshed out as we move throughout the year 2026, and so we'll keep an eye on what happens with that blueprint. One of the things that the RAC was looking to do, and I think in conjunction with AQCC, was look at the public health costs versus other cost burdens to people when we're implementing any of these control strategies. So I know that was a big concern to this board, and so wanted to let folks know that we will be able to see those numbers hopefully in the coming year. And so, I'll be sharing those as we get those. So I'm happy to take any questions. Okay. I don't see any questions. If any questions come up, please reach out. Thank you. So we'll move on to, we're just ticking along. The remote meetings are pretty nice. For the non-attainment area air pollution, which is agenda number number 8 on our agenda. We did not have a meeting in January for the non-attainment area air pollution mitigation enterprise. Our next meeting will be in February, and I reported on the December meeting at our last meeting. So we are on to agenda item number 9, which is report of the chair. There's a couple items of business that we need to take care of this evening. One is 2026 committee appointments. And so maybe Elizabeth, will you remind us what committees we're looking to fill and how many people we need to volunteer for some of those committees?
Sure. So we do our annual appointment for our finance committee, our HR committee, and essentially, if you're a current member, we usually have 3 to 5 members. We try and get a representative from each county, a community from each side. For finance committee, it's been Mayor Freeze and Council Member Jenkins, and I'm trying to think off the top of my head who's participating in those ones. You are welcome to, if you wish to continue to participate on those committees, if you're already serving, you can ask to stay a part of it. We just need at least 3 to 5 members for those committees moving forward. So I guess, Chair, I would just turn it over to you if you wanted to start with the Finance Committee.
Sure. So we had Councilmember Jenkins. Oh, yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, happy to serve again on the Finance Committee.
Okay. And Mayor, guys.
I'm happy to serve on the Finance Committee as well.
Okay. I had previously served on the Finance Committee kind of all along, and then served as the chair in the past year, being the vice chair. So Liz, Mayor Pro Tem Hyde
I'll be vice or the chair now, correct?
should be the chair. So we have 3 members now. Is there anyone else who's interested? I guess we could take 2 more members if anyone else is interested.
I thought Mark Clark was also on our committee, although maybe that's changed and I didn't realize it.
I think he has been.
He was on the list of, but his term is ending soon, so he had asked if someone else. Was it, oh, I can only think he owns the brewery, take his place on the committee as well. Can someone remind me? I can't think of his.
So Councilmember Crabtree is going to represent on the council, and so he doesn't have to continue to serve on the Finance Committee just because Mayor Clark was.
Okay.
If somebody else wants to represent, typically we'll have our vice chair the Finance Committee. So that would be you, Mayor Pro Tem Hyde. You'll be the chair for the Finance Committee. And I think outside of that, if anybody else, I guess, has any interest, we can work through that as well. This committee meets the 3rd Thursday of every month. We go over all of the finances, essentially, or if we need any assistance on any policies or anything associated with the finances. Essentially, you make the recommendations going over the unaudited financials that then get presented. As you saw, we had Q3 unaudited financials on the consent agenda. So the Finance Committee was the committee that went through that with staff. So those are some of the responsibilities that they do for that committee.
It's important to note that it is remote, so it's pretty easy to participate. That being said, 3 is a quorum, as I understand it, for the committee. So it'd be really nice if we had at least one other person in case we have somebody that is unable to attend. We could still have quorum.
And it sounds like we would like somebody from Larimer County, right? If we want to even the score on representation. Liz and I both in Weld County, Bill and Larimer. It'd be nice if we had another Larimer County representative.
Actually, Timoth does have a little bit of Weld County in the city.
I like that. It makes it 3-0. Well, let's just leave it the way it is.
Is anyone, Councilmember Canonico?
Yeah, I don't know how you want to do it for Fort Collins. I know whoever comes on board will probably want to participate in a committee. So I'm happy to assign them a committee if you want me to for starting next month. But
Finance is a good one.
You know what? I think that we can stay with the three, and then as we have that new member come on, and then you know, Loveland, Councilmember like Kovacs is you're the alternate, right? And so we can ask the mayor of Loveland if he's interested as well when he comes back as the permanent member. So maybe we'll just leave it as it is. You know, I'll ask Liz as the chair, maybe you can let us know if you know, hopefully it won't become a problem to, you know, get quorum next month. If it is, you know, maybe we can
Yeah,
still
we
do
can
some.
also keep you posted on how it goes and then revisit in the next few months as everybody gets settled into their roles.
That sounds great. I mean, I will say, in defense of the finance committee that I think I've been on for 6 or 7 years now, and I'm stepping off for the first time in that many years. It is a really good way to get to know the organization and kind of how it operates. And you do get to, you know, make some good decisions and really kind of dig into the finances. And so it may sound a bit dry, but we've always had a good time, and it's always been really pretty interesting to figure, you know, to learn about what's happening with the organization. So so we'll hope to recruit some members next month. And thank you for the current members for staying on. And then as far as the STAC representative, I'll be serving as the STAC representative as the chair of the board. I am asking Bill Jenkins to be the alternate for me this time. And I believe he has agreed to do that. Is that right, Bill?
Yep. Happy to serve.
And just want to thank Liz for her good service in the past year on that board. And she'll probably get to serve on that board next year. So she gets a year off, and then she gets back to the morning meetings. So thank you, Liz.
You're in person next month, so.
That's right. That's right. Drive down to Denver. Nice. Elizabeth, were there any other, is there a human resources committee?
There is. It doesn't meet often. It's only as needed. And essentially it's similar where we usually have 3 to 5 members. So it isn't, I would say, it's not a committee that meets on a regular basis. But if for some reason we would need to convene, essentially I was just trying to look through here on essentially, you know, who would be responsible. It's similar where we want 3 to 5 members, similar distribution like we have with the finance committee. But essentially, I don't know how often they've met, but it says that the chair will review and appoint the HR committee with representatives from both counties, large and small communities, 3 to 5 members. And essentially, the planning council chair appoints the HR committee with the current past chair serving as chair. So it looks like Johnny Olson would be the chair for that committee.
And then who do we know who's been on that committee?
That's probably a question of, maybe Becky can answer that one. I don't know.
Madam Chair, I think, well, I mean, we interviewed Elizabeth this last year, and before that, we interviewed the former executive director. And I know that Bill was a part of that. I know Johnny, myself, Tricia, you were a part of that, were you not? And I'm happy to continue to serve, although Elizabeth is going to retire with the NPO, so therefore we have no reason to once again meet. But I'm happy to continue to serve.
Well, there you go, Elizabeth. You can't leave. Thank you, Commissioner James. I appreciate it. So, are the folks that were just mentioned? I know that Councilmember Canonico will be leaving us after this meeting as a member. But everyone else, are you okay to stay in those roles?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just keep that group as it is. And if, I think if people want to join, if we do have an opening, I feel like at one point we had actually helped with some interviews for some other positions in the past. So I think that that's something too, Elizabeth, if you want to call on, kind of a second look, through if you have a big role coming up, whether it's controller or something like that, anything like that, we could serve and help with those interviews as well too, if needed. So, all right. I think that's all the appointments that we need to make. One thing I did want to acknowledge is that this will be the last meeting where Councilmember Canonico will be serving as a member. She'll be coming back to us with reports from the North Front Range Passenger Rail. But Councilmember Canonico, and I don't know if Councilmember Mallow is here today. I don't believe so.
I am Kristen.
Oh my God. Okay. I don't, I can only see so many faces on my.
Not a problem.
Well, and so, former Mayor Pro Tem Mallow is the same, will be leaving us and will be, joining us as a member of the North Front Range Passenger Rail, doing those reports. But we want to thank both of you for your service on this board. It isn't the easiest board to serve on. There's a lot of responsibilities. There's a lot to learn on this board. The glossary in the beginning of the packet only tells half the story of how much you need to learn and how many acronyms you learn and how often those funding sources change. And with the volatility of the funding in the past couple of years, it has not been easy to kind of understand all that you need to do on this board. So we thank you very much for your service, and we appreciate your attendance and your willingness to also serve on our subcommittees and of course former Mayor Pro Tem Mallow, chairing and vice chairing this board as well. So you've done great service, and we really appreciate it. Happy to open the floor up to anybody else who wants to say anything to these two members who will be leaving us. We do have some certificates for you, and hey, we're remote, so we will give those to you at the February meeting. So, but thank you again.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. I just wanted to let you know too, first, I'd want to say it's been such a pleasure serving with all of you. It's been great to see the cooperation between the two counties, and just great to see your faces every month. I found out today I will be serving you in a dual role. I'll be appointed next week to CTIO as well to represent our MPO. So double reason to come to the meetings each month. So looking forward to that.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Councilmember Canonico, for taking on a second role. It's like you can't get away from the transportation world now, right? And John, did you want to say anything as well?
No, it's just been a quick 4 years, and going through all the roles and responsibilities and committee assignments. It's really it's been fascinating, actually. I never thought I'd say that in my lifetime, but transportation is really very interesting and needed in northern Colorado. And it's good to see the two counties get together and agree on the vast majority of all things. And anyway, thank you all for being patient with me and all my stupid questions, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think any questions in this area are stupid. we're all learning, and we're all continue to learn. So thank you. Is there anyone else who want to say anything before we move on? Okay. Well, we will move on now to our executive director report.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. Starting out, I just wanted to follow up. I had emailed the council earlier this morning asking for your support to authorize the chair's signature on a letter for Mustang service. It's a really important service. I think you guys have heard presentations about Mustang in our region and how successful it is. The routes that run through our region are the most successful in the state. And so we are asking for your support to reach out to CDOT, let them know that we appreciate the service and everything that it does for our region, but we'd also like them to consider some additional improvements to the service. We can't reach all of our riderships when we don't have paper ticket options or medical seating reservations. And so there's some additional asks, I guess you can say, that we want to make to CDOT. And we were just asking for your support for the chair to send this letter. I sent the link as well to in the email. CDOT is in the process of asking for comments on changing their proposed Mustang services, specifically the Outrider route from Sterling to Greeley. Councilman Olson and I didn't have a chance to connect on Greeley's position for that service, but they are asking for comments through January 15th. So if you have specific feedback that you want to submit on the Mustang service, that link can get you there to fill out that survey. So I was just looking for some feedback on if you guys would support submitting that letter to CDOT. CASTA is putting together and trying to rally the troops on similar support letters.
Has everybody had a chance to look at that letter? Any thoughts on that letter?
I'll
certainly
hop in if I could. I think it's an outstanding
Sure.
letter, well written. Let's get behind it. It's good. I don't know whether you need that in a formal mission or motion rather, Madam Chair. If so, I move we send that letter and have you sign it. But
I'll
if not,
second.
I'll second.
Okay. I think it would be good to have a formal vote. So thank you, Commissioner James, and the second from Council Member Jenkins. Is that right? All right. All in favor of sending the letter, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. Anyone abstaining? Okay, that motion passes, so we will be sending the letter. I agree, Commissioner James. I thought it was a great letter and really addresses some of the needs that people in our communities have around, accessibility on the Mustang, so Outrider service. So thank you. Anything else from Elizabeth?
I appreciate it. And I want to thank Aaron Hall for helping put that letter together for the council to move forward. He did a great job on it. I just wanted to update you guys also that it's going to be that it probably feels like we just did our 2050 regional transportation plan, but it's that time, 2026, we need to start kicking off our efforts for what we're going to do for our 2055 RTP. One of the first steps in that process is to update our regional travel demand model. I'm happy to say that we did receive one responsive bid for our modeling RFP, and we sent out today sent out a 2-year contract to Cambridge Systems Incorporated in the amount of $247,653 for Cambridge to be our modeling consultant. They have historically been our modeling consultant for quite some time. They've given us a great deal, and we're really excited to kick off the next model year that's going to essentially feed into the inputs that we're going to be putting together for the RTP. So that's getting started. We also, speaking of RFPs, did receive 2 bids for our audit services on December 19th, and staff's been going through the scoring process and looking at making a recommendation to award that next week. Lastly, we have our IT services RFP that's due tomorrow. And I just want to thank Councilmember Jenkins in advance for agreeing to be on our RFP scoring committee for those proposals. I don't know how many we'll receive, but I'll be sending you out that information once we know. Again, that closes tomorrow. And staff also has some comments that I wanted to share. We have finalized our 2023 congestion management process report. CMP is what we call it. That's one of the acronyms you hear staff throwing around. And The report essentially is just a supplement to our 2023 CM congestion management process. And the reason I bring it up to you guys is because it doesn't actually go to TAC or Planning Council for approval. So staff, we just wanted to make sure that you were aware on our website. The report has been finalized, and it demonstrates that we are making positive improvements, or at least progress towards our performance measures that we've identified. We've improved in 5 of the 9 areas, and we continue to try and put together recommendations and projects that are going to support our congestion management process. So I want to thank Michaela for her work on that document. I also want to thank Shane with Van Gogh. His high level of customer service efforts to be able to get riders onto our routes is amazing. He signed up a new participant at 4 p.m. on New Year's Eve so that they could start their service January 2nd. So I just really appreciate those kinds of turns around that staff is doing so that we can get as many people using our Van Gogh program as possible. And then lastly, speaking of staff, I want to just give another shout out to Tanya, who put together our Ruby Bridges grant. That was just such a great effort and day. She, and I don't know if you've had a chance to look through the packet material, she's put together a great summary of basically the event that we did with the school, the partnership that we did with that Goal High School, and the student that wrote the essay and essentially received the bike that was used to purchase as part of those grant efforts. And I just want to thank staff for all of their hard work in trying to think outside the box for opportunities for us to reach out and educate in all facets of what we do, mobility, transportation efforts. And so that's all I have for my report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Any questions for Elizabeth? I agree that that Ruby Bridges program was really, really special, and it was a really great story for the NPO to have and to participate in that way and to talk about, connecting kids and safe routes to school and connecting communities. Really, really powerful stuff. So thank you. All right, so I almost lost my place. We have Finance Committee is written. Number 12, TAC is written. Number 13, Mobility is written, and it's in the handout. And so we will move on to the presentation that we have. And that is the initiative number 75, ballot measure, Restore Our Roads. I believe we have Tom Peterson and Tony Milo here to speak about this. So welcome.
Great, thank you. Thanks, we appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Appreciate the invitation to be here. I'm Tony Milo. I'm CEO of the Colorado Contractors Association. And Tom, I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Well, thank you, Tony. Good evening, everyone. Tom Peterson, Director of the Colorado Asphalt Pavement Association.
So we do have a brief PowerPoint presentation, if it would be possible. There's a CCA on the phone here, and that's my work computer. If you could give the CCA the ability to share, I think I should be able to share the PowerPoint. Looks like I got share.
I made CCA a presenter, so that should work.
Okay, thank you. I'm just working on getting this up here. Can you all see that? Or no?
Not yet. See anything yet.
My apologies.
Yeah, I think we can see it now. Might want to put it in presentation mode.
Okay, great. Thank you. Great. Sorry about the
Oh,
delay
that's all
there.
right. Well, we're all learning the technology.
Well, we appreciate the chance to speak with you all. Tom and I have been working over the last year to figure out a way to get more money into our roads and bridges. And, you know, we've done a lot of research and a lot of work. We've done 3 different statewide polls, and we've got a lot of good information to share. We'll go through this PowerPoint quickly and hopefully save plenty of time for Q&A. But I'll turn it over to Tom to kick it off and talk about the need.
Very good. Well, good evening again. And as the comment was made earlier tonight, transportation is fascinating. I would concur with that. I think Tony would as well. And I think we all benefit from the roads and highways of Colorado, the owner agencies, keeping them in good condition. Obviously, the motorists, the businesses, and then the industry that benefit and put people to work and improve that. But we do have a problem here in Colorado, and it's one that has been deteriorating over time. Here's a quote from TRIP, which is the Transportation Research Information Project, probably the most respected national group that does studies each year and updates them across the country. Dave Kirby, despite increased state and federal transportation funding in recent years, Colorado still faces a significant shortfall in funds needed to improve road and bridge conditions, ease congestion, and enhance safety. It will be critical that state adequately invest in its transportation network in order to provide a system that is smooth, safe, and efficient. And I'd go back to those 3 words in the middle there: condition, congestion, and safety. Tony, next slide, please. And so here is what we see as truly as a crisis: quality, both in condition, safety, capacity, congestion, and of course the funding being inconsistent and unreliable. And it's not, a quick fix. You know, many of you, city, county, municipal, you defer maintenance, and if you do, you pay for it, and it's not a quick fix. It's like being down 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter when you get to the condition of moving from resurfacing to rehabilitation to reconstruction. And so it truly has taken us time to get to this point. And in every metric, you would be categorized not as fair or good or excellent, but in the poor category. You're trending that way. Tony, next slide, please. And so the coalition that has been established, led by CCA and the Contractors Association, but it includes each of the 4 construction material organizations. CAPA, representing the asphalt industry, 9 million tons statewide. CSSGA, the stone, sand, and gravel. CRMCA, which is the Ready Mix Association, then ACPA, which is the American Concrete Pavement Association. We established the 527 back in, Tony, 2015, 2012, and to fund and to support transportation funding statewide. And the coalition has been laser focused at supporting education of voters and supportive initiatives that move the ball forward from a transportation funding standpoint. So in 2025, the industry coalition launched a moniker of Restore Our Roads, an effort focused on road funding as a priority in Colorado. Next slide. From a number of metrics, many of you know Greg Fulton, motor carrier, one of the bigger users of our system in Colorado. A well-maintained well-being of Colorado's economy relies on a safe, reliable, efficient highway system with 94% of the goods in our state moved by truck. Unfortunately, increased congestion, deteriorated condition of many of our highways adversely impact our state. And then finally, in the bold there, is critical that the state make maintaining and improving our highways a high priority at this time. And on a note, I spent 9 years with the Federal Highway Administration, and the greatest asset owned by the federal government is the 56,000 lane mile highway system, the National Highway System. And of course, Colorado, 23,000 lane miles, I'd argue is one of the greatest, if not the greatest asset owned by the state of Colorado. Next slide, please. From a economic standpoint, rural Colorado, of course, when you hit Weld County and heading east, agriculture is our state's second largest industry. We need a well-maintained transportation system in rural Colorado to be able to move our commodities and engage in commerce. Jeff Self, president of the Corn Growers Association. And often when you look at the 10-year plan, when you look at the STIPs, there's segments of highways that there's funding for, but boy, from somewhere to state line or from that specific project back to the metro area, there's limited funds for improving the corridors that move Colorado's economy from an agriculture standpoint. Next slide. Another metric, the cost to drivers, motorists, spending billions per year driving on rough roads, congestion, traffic crashes from a safety standpoint, and then finally from a fatality standpoint. And each of these metrics are growing and not getting better, but getting worse. And this information from TRIP. Next slide, please, Tony. The Common Sense Institute did a deep dive on the shift of transportation dollars. And you can see on the back of the van, over 200 million in transportation fees are impacting Coloradans on a daily basis. However, the majority of these fees do not fund roads. Instead, they're directed to environmental mitigation. A couple examples, the retail delivery fees, Amazon deliveries on DoorDash, 29 cents per delivery, per ride fees, Uber or Lyft, 32 cents per ride. And so the findings of the report was that the fees are not going to the roads, that the CDOT resources do not meet demand, and finally, general fund transfer are inconsistent and often not directed to road improvements. Next slide, please. And so here is a kind of a flow chart of efforts made over the last years by the state legislature. And I think the title on the top encapsulates just the flow, whether it's Senate Bill 108, 228, then in 12, the 168, and even most recently is the 267, whether it's clawback, delayed, deferred, diminished, or all but eliminated. But the problem is not that, or is not a problem the legislature has been able to fix or has any near-term efforts to fix it. And so next slide, and I'll be transitioning Tony here in a minute. So since passage of Senate Bill 21260, our state roads have gotten worse by every possible metric. And again, the big three: condition, congestion, safety, and of course, the funding is also a concern or a problem. Vehicle travel continues to increase. And so one way to look at it is CDOT's backlog. And many of you representing local government, what is your backlog to improve your system? CDOT has identified a $350 million backlog on each of their, or the total of their 12 asset condition areas. And the biggest one are highway condition, and that is a $200 million backlog. And so this is at the same time where buying power has diminished, where the cost of congestion increases. I've heard $1 million to $2 million per hour of the congestion up on the I-70 corridor. And so we feel that we can't wait for the legislature to fix it. And we would think that the polling would indicate that the voters of Colorado are in a position to support a measure to address the problem that we have. So Tony, I think it's back over to you to dive into the solution at this point.
All right, thank you, Tom. I think Tom did a great job of just laying out the need, and we don't need to spend a lot of time talking to you all about the need. You are well aware of it. You deal with it every day. I'm sure each one of you in your own agencies has millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of unmet need when it comes to roads and bridges in our transportation system. So basically, since 2021, we did pass the largest transportation package in Colorado history, and as Tom said, our roads have gotten nothing but worse. Congestion is up, safety is down, pavement quality is degrading. There is no plan right now from anyone to fix this problem, or even turn the tide, or even start to mitigate the problem. The situation we're in right now is where we will be, and it's only going to get worse if we don't take action. Um, so what our proposed solution is, and this wasn't our first try at solving this problem. I'm sure many of you were involved in Ref C&D back in 2016. We supported that effort, and while C passed, D failed. D was the specific road transportation piece. The passage of C did help a little bit. We were also able to get the registration fees, the faster registration fees increased in 2009. But at the same time, the same year we got those transportation fees increased, which brought in about $250 million. We lost Senate Bill, the old Senate Bill 1 that used to devote some general fund money to transportation. So as Tom kind of mentioned earlier, we've taken one step forward, two steps back, time and time again. We've polled the voters. Like I said, we've done some extensive polling 3 times over the last year, and tested a lot of different concepts with them. Also in 2018, we tried a 60%, 0.62% sales tax increase statewide, dedicated to highways, dedicated to transportation. We spent about $8 million on that campaign, and that campaign went down in flames. Since then, all the polling that we've done has said motorists and voters feel that they pay enough in taxes right now. They feel that what they're paying in taxes should be going into the roads, and they want to see a commitment from the state to fix our roads and bridges with existing tax dollars. So our ballot proposal is pretty simple. It really just says all of the fees and taxes that are paid on fuel for motor vehicles, and sales tax that is collected on motor vehicle sales, plus 2/3 of vehicle parts sales, tires, other vehicle parts that are charged sales taxes, would be dedicated to roads. And it polls. We have the polling here. Very simple question when we ask the voters, and this has been time and time again. The 3 times that we polled this, all the numbers were very similar. You can see here, it's about 70% saying, yeah, they want their existing taxes to go to roads. So it's overwhelming, really, when we ask the voters that they're fed up with the state of our roads across the state, rural, urban, all over, and they want some of their existing tax dollars to go to paying the roads, and that's really what this ballot initiative does. This is the actual language of the initiative. And I won't read it, but you all can read it, and we'll also share it with you all, so you can have it and digest it and take a look at it. But again, basically, it says the fees charged on fuel and sales tax for automobiles will be dedicated to roads. The money would flow through the HUTF, so that 60% would go to CDOT and the 40% would go to cities and counties, so that the money will be spread out, and we'd be able to make substantial fixes to our state system and our local systems, which are both equally important. So let's see, the measure would increase transportation funding by about $700 to $900 million a year. It starts a little bit lower. It starts at about 600, 650, and then grows with inflation as the economy grows, because the sales tax naturally is indexed to inflation as more people come in and our economy grows. As I said, it'll be distributed through the Highway Users Tax Fund, and so the local governments would share in this this additional funding, as well as CDOT. Where we are right now, we are in the process of collecting signatures. This is a constitutional amendment. So there is a higher bar for collecting signatures on a constitutional amendment. We also have to get 55% of the voters to say yes in November in order to enact this. The reason we feel it's important to do it as a constitutional amendment is that the legislature has not made roads a priority, has not made transportation a priority in any way. And, our worry is if this were statutory, it would be just too easy to change. So we are going for a constitutional amendment. We'll be doing another round of polling here, January, early February, using the exact language. We just got the language actually approved from Title Board. So we'll be using that exact language this time when we poll. Signature collection is going well. The feedback from we have about 74 right now canvassers across the state collecting signatures, and the feedback they're giving us is that it's a pretty easy ask of the voters. When you ask, do you want your existing taxes to go to fix your roads, it's an overwhelming yes. We'll be building coalitions and looking for endorsements through this winter, January, February, and ongoing. By May, we need to have our signatures submitted and confirm that we have access to the ballot. And then May 2026 is our campaign for hopefully a successful election in November. Again, I guess these are the final takeaways. Funding for Colorado roads, no new taxes from this ballot measure. State revenue generated for roads is spent on roads. Prevents policymakers from diverting the funds to other projects. Funds for construction, surface repairs, maintenance, and operation of public streets, primarily for motor vehicle use. And does not impact, this is an important one. We don't impact the enterprise fees that were created in 21-260. So those various enterprises that Tom mentioned earlier, it's about roughly $200 million a year for transit options, environmental mitigation, electrification, and so on, will remain intact. We know that transit and environmental mitigation is important. All just as important as building safe roads and bridges. So that will remain intact, and that funding will remain intact as well. And that is all we have, and we'd love to open it up to questions. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Tom. Looks like Commissioner James has a question.
I think you called on me, Chris, and your microphone got a little wonky there. Tom and Tony, thanks for the presentation. This is outstanding news, in my opinion. State legislature has proved over the last decade or so that they are utterly feckless in funding our roadways. I give them a complete total F. They're a failure. The reason that the tax increases do not pass is because you found out the taxpayers feel exactly the way that you found they feel. That hey, I give enough of my money. It's simply you're not appropriately allocating that money fully behind this. I sit as chair of the I-25 coalition, and last night we had a conversation. In fact, Commissioner Stevens brought up, he says, is the funding committee still active? Well, yeah, we all get together and lament about the fact that we don't have any money. Here's an opportunity to do something. I tell you, I think this is a slam dunk. Gentlemen, use my name, use it twice, use my likeness. That won't help you. But I'd be more than thrilled to get behind this in any given way. Quite frankly, when it hits the ballot, I think you should come to organizations like this one, to coalitions like the I-25 coalition, and endeavor to get endorsements. I will work my best to do that in those venues as well. So please use my name. Outstanding, well done. Let me know how I can support it. Thank you.
Really appreciate that, Scott, and we'll definitely be in touch because we need all the help we can get.
Okay, I have Andrew Peranto from Johnstown.
Yeah. So I totally am on board with using, say, transportation to fund transportation. The sort of caveat that I'm thinking of is this will essentially gut the general fund for the state, and since we consistently have a problem with funding our own state, how that will affect the passage of your guys' legislation.
Well, it's a great point. I mean, it's money that's going to come out of the general fund, and our budget certainly is tight. But you know what? It's been a long, long time that transportation has been the neglected stepchild of the state. They're funding education, they're funding healthcare, they're funding a host of other different things, and certainly a lot of things out there that could be cut, other than education and healthcare when you look at a $3+ billion or a $30+ billion budget. So, what we're saying is, hey, it's time for transportation to get a piece of this pie. It's time for the state to make transportation funding and road funding a priority again. And we're just going to have to figure out, how to pay for it.
Yeah, and so that's that. So Tabor, of course, is always under fire, and the way I see it, this will add another slot in the proverbial gun to shoot at Tabor, since since we are going to take away taxes from the general fund, and that's a problem that I would say is worse than sort of our status quo that we have.
One thing I'd add to what Tony said is we presented, Tony and I did, to the TLRC in September, October, and we were one of the response from one of the legislators is that this is on the verge of being irresponsible for you two to come here and to imply that a ballot measure is needed, and the funds coming from K-12, higher ed, healthcare, and I think Tony hit it on the head. The response is, you know what, transportation has been neglected too long, and how you work through the deficit, that's a tough decision. But as transportation construction advocates, we want to put a spotlight on the problem. And then secondly, the polling, one of the specific questions added what the opposition argument most likely will be is that these funds will be taken from these other priorities, and it did not move the needle in terms of the percent against or the percent undecided. It was locked down. So is that accurate, Tony?
Yeah, that's right, Tom.
Councilmember Canonico.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I do have some questions as well. So we saw in 2023, 350 million go to public safety in a ballot measure. So we can have all these different interest groups come forward and taking money from the general fund. And I'm really kind of curious, with the budget crunch that we're in now, where do you think these dollars are coming from? Like, what is the legislature going to have to cut to ensure that this money goes to transportation?
Tom, you want to weigh in on that, or
Yeah, I kind of inkled that with respect to, boy, that's a tough decision. But in terms of transportation, it's a crisis. Where the funds come from, boy, that's a tough decision for the state legislature. But how bad does it have to get for the motorists of Colorado, for the construction industry with stagnant funding, with increased cost? We're at a crisis within member companies, and so I think there's a number of angles to say that, boy, that's why they get paid the big dollars as state legislatures. But I don't have a direct answer to you. But how long will other programs be funded at the cost and the expense of transportation, which is the backbone of public funding in terms of serve and protect? So, Tony?
Yeah, I think that's right. There's no easy answer. And it's the General Assembly and the governor's job to balance the budget and figure out what the voters' priorities are. And if the voters do pass this measure in November, they're speaking loud and clear that they want a portion of their tax dollars, and this portion of the general fund, it's about, I think, 2% of the general fund is what we're asking for here. 2% of all of the general fund to go to roads and bridges does not seem unreasonable. And I think that, you know, it's time for the General Assembly to make some tough decisions and to make sure that the priorities of the voters are funded.
I think there have been tough decisions really made in the last year. You know, I mean, we're seeing healthcare impacted, we're seeing education impacted, we're seeing our ability to help the needy across our state impacted. I think there's a lot of things, and it makes it really hard for them to make these decisions when they don't have control over the general fund. You know, that's why we elected them to make these decisions. So I really have issues with these ballot initiatives. I also am curious is how would your measure affect our existing local transportation dollars? Would it change how we have the formula of how we have to spend money?
Well, you'd get more money, obviously, and the new money would have to be spent on roads. You'd have to look for, you know, other sources of money, whether it be from these enterprises or someplace else to fund, you know, non-road related or bridge related construction. But you'd have each local government would have a lot more money to work with overall. And I will say that you know, I totally get where you're coming from on the painful cuts that have happened over the last 2 years, because transportation was one of the biggest losers in the last budget debate. We lost more money than any other beneficiary of the general fund, and so I understand where you're coming from, and I know it's been painful for everybody.
So, you know, in our last meeting, we were really focused on safety. We're really talking about our target numbers for deaths and serious injuries on our roads throughout our 2 counties. And one thing that we really know helps to decrease these deaths are complete streets. So this would not fund complete streets.
Well, maybe you could tell me what complete streets are. I'm not familiar with the term.
Bike and pedestrian infrastructure as well.
Yeah, you know, we've looked at it, and our plan is to make it clear when we comment on the Blue Book and when we go through rulemaking, if this were to pass, that safety and things like pedestrian crossings, bike paths, you know, that increase safety of the roadway and that are tangential and essential to a safe roadway would be allowed.
That will be included.
Yes, that is absolutely our intent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, council member. We'll move on to Mayor Price. Oh, actually, I'm sorry,
Bill was ahead of me, and it's pronounced freeze. Thank you.
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, I apologize. Council member Jenkins.
Yeah. So one of the things that that I didn't hear, and I think it's the legislators in making their difficult decisions on how to spend money out of the general fund or the decrease in the general fund. What I didn't hear is, what are the financial impacts? In other words, if is $900 million or $700 million invested in these roads, what's the payback? Obviously, safety is one of them, but is it going to generate, as a result of improved transportation, is it going to generate more revenue for the state as a result of that? I would think that would be an important component of any argument. If we spend that money, what are we getting besides maybe fewer flat tires or shock damage or whatever from potholes? But I mean, and improve safety. Are we improving the economy as a result?
I think that's a great question and a great point. We have been looking at finding a group of economists or a group that does these kind of studies to study just that. You know, if we do spend this much more money on our transportation system and people and goods are moving faster, there's not as much wear and tear on their car, are more employers apt to come here? We would argue that is very much the case, that it will spur economic development, spur employment, bring in new employers, and it will bring more money into the state. And we plan to make that case during the campaign. And I'll say that, you know, you make a great point, but even just the wear and tear on the vehicles and the sitting in traffic, Tripp did a study, and it's about over $2,000 per motorist in the metro area wasted every year in wear and tear on your vehicles and sitting in traffic. So it's billions of dollars just in that. And that doesn't include the economic development.
I mean, that's part of the argument for spending money on good education at both the K-12 and the university at post K-12 level is the huge economic impact that a good education system provides for the state and building a strong, competent workforce, which will draw new investments by businesses and bring businesses here. You need a highly educated, particularly in the current economy, you need a highly educated workforce if you're going to bring in, you know, good companies with high-paying jobs. So I'd hate to see big cuts in education happen in the process. So I think it's a tough decisions for sure.
Thank you, council member. Mayor Freeze. I apologize for mispronouncing your name.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Being last on the list with questions, my mind's going in several different directions, so I want to make sure I stay on point. But first, let me say that if I take a position that I am pro quality roads, that does not mean that I'm anti-healthcare and anti-education. Okay. So I am pro quality roads, and there are difficult decisions that need to be made. And these decisions, based on this proposed constitutional amendment, is putting those decisions where they belong, and that's to the taxpayer and the voter, not the legislature. Quoting Commissioner James, I don't care what side of the aisle you are on, the clear grade that the legislature deserves for how they've taken care of the roads in Colorado is an F. Now, the painful question and the painful decision of having to take funds, and hear me now, based on the presentation that I heard, all of these funds, this $700 to $900 million, is being sold to the Colorado taxpayer, that you are paying taxes on auto-related items, and that money is being spent on non-auto-related amenities. Now, that's just a fact. Now, we've all heard of borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. What's been happening here is that Peter is lying to Paul. So the reason you're getting the poll responses that you are doesn't surprise me a bit, because the assumption is that when you pay on the back of your vehicle registration a bridge fee, that money is going to maintain bridges. And the fact is that it's not. And that's why I think this will gain legs, as we're actually telling the truth to the taxpayers that you're paying taxes and fees that appear to be going to transportation, and they're not. So we can, the healthcare industry, education, or us as taxpayers, we can start our own initiative. If you can't get a 0.62, whatever it was, sales tax increase for transportation, why don't we ask for a 0.62 sales tax increase for healthcare and education? And let's let our transportation funding go where everybody already thinks it's going. So I'm in 100% support of this. I think you've done some wonderful work. I'm happy to sign your petition, as well as get hundreds, if not thousands, of other people in my community to sign it, because I get asked almost every week about why our roads are in such bad shape. And I'm talking about in part of the town, I'm talking county roads, state highways, and so on and so forth. They're not asking me questions of why is our K through 12 education lacking? Why can't I have access to healthcare? These questions are about roads. And they believe the same thing that your poll suggests, that I'm already paying enough. And I agree with them. Flip over your vehicle registration. It's an education on what it costs to pay in these fees. And now what you're telling us, which I've already known, is that none of that money goes to improve anything that you're paying the tax on. So I'm full support of this. Yes, there's difficult decisions, but I think it's also a more difficult explanation to go back to the taxpayers and tell them that all this money you thought you were paying on roads is not going to roads. I think that's a tougher conversation than legislators trying to decide where the budget money goes. The last thing I'll say, this $700 to $900 million is all based on taxes and fees that have absolutely nothing to do with general sales tax, and they have nothing to do with income tax. Where's all that money going? Okay. And so I think this is an opportunity to balance the books. And once the voters realize what you're trying to do, they are not going to let healthcare and K through 12 education go unfunded, but they deserve to have the money that they're paying go to what they think it is. So let me know how I can help. I'm on your side. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. And I want to say we've already had about 35 minutes on this topic. And so I am happy to entertain a couple more questions. Not necessarily like, clearly people are, there's some divisions here. And so let's kind of, I'm going to let Liz speak since Commissioner, Mayor Pro Tem Hyde speak, because Council Member Canonico's already had a run at this. And so Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks, Kristen. Mine is just a question. Going back through our packet tonight, I don't have the presentation, and so my question is just if we can get a copy of this presentation to go back over again. I'd like to read it some more as the night goes on in the week. So if there's a way we can have the presentation shared with us, I would really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Happy to share it, and we'll send it to, who should we send that to?
You should send it to me. Yes, email it to me.
Yeah, send it to our executive director, please.
Okay.
Are there any more questions out there? All right, I have a couple questions that I'd like to ask, and then we'll wrap this up. So are there any other cash funds that you think are going to be impacted besides the general fund?
That is,
so like the legislative, my understanding is that the Legislative Council's fiscal note identified non-enterprise cash funds like DMV, CDPHE, and other funds that would be affected.
yeah, we are, that is not our intent. And when we've talked to our attorney who's done our drafting, he feels that our language is tight, that it's not intended to go after those other cash funds. And again, when it comes time to comment on the Blue Book and also go through rulemaking, if this were to pass, we would be consistent in that position as the proponents of the measure.
Thank you. And then what about like things like MMOF, busting, revitalizing Main Street? Would those projects be able to stay in place? Those are transportation dollars that we use for other things, and I understand the importance of roads, and but I also understand the importance of other transportation funding in our communities.
Yeah, and some of it certainly would. I think the way that we defined roads and bridges also includes safety. And, I think anything that includes building a road for a motor vehicle like a bus would be included. Now, things that are absolutely not related to roads, like building a light rail facility. We've got the enterprise fees, and that was supposed to be the intent of those enterprise fees to fund those efforts.
The enterprise fees were never intended to fund all the multimodal needs that we have in our communities. They have specific goals in mind, but they were never, nor are they gathering in the kind of money to be able to provide the kind of transit and other options that we need in our communities to get people to and from work. Not everybody can own a car. So transit is important. All right. Well, any other questions before we let these folks go? All right. Well, thank you. And we might want to hear from some people in the future that, might have some other thoughts about how we handle these dollars. But thank you for presenting and appreciate that. And it sounds like everybody will be getting a copy of the slides. So thank you.
We will share that, and thank you all for your time and the opportunity to present. We appreciate it.
Yep, thank you very much.
All right, so we will move on to our next item. Try to stay on track here. So our next item is number 15, and that's the Foothills Transit Station Multimodal Options Fund Match Relief Request. Here's an example of a project that did lose some federal dollars, and so I think that there's someone here from Transport that will be talking about this.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Annabelle Phillips. I'm the Assistant Director at Transport with the City of Fort Collins. I'm here tonight on behalf of my colleague Joshua Ma, bringing this resolution 2026-01 for your consideration. We are requesting approval from the Council for match relief for the MMOF funds that were awarded to the city for the Foothills Transit Station project. This item was presented recently for discussion, and there was broad support in moving forward to bring this item to a vote. And this item has also been previously discussed with the Technical Advisory Committee, who recommended Planning Council approval. So typically the City of Fort Collins is subject to a match rate of 50% for MMOF funds, but because the majority of this project is located outside the city limits in Larimer County, we are requesting to use Larimer County's match rate of 25%. And you alluded to this, we were made aware late last month that the DOT is withdrawing the FY23 raised funds that we were awarded in the amount of $10.7 million for this project. This is still pretty new for us, but we're currently working with our federal and state funding partners to understand what other funding levers might be available for the project. This project is very important to Transport and to the City of Fort Collins. It will create a mobility hub on the western edge of the western side of Fort Collins, and provide an opportunity for some route realignments that will greatly improve transit service in that area. So we would like to continue with this request while we navigate the funding situation that we're presented with. If we do need to adjust the scope of the project to meet funding requirements, we would bring forward a TIP amendment to the council for consideration. Any questions?
Thank you, Annabelle. Any questions for Annabelle on this project?
Yes, please. Annabelle, from the standpoint of a percentage, what percentage of the project is in the Fort Collins municipal boundary and what percentage is outside? And why wouldn't we weight the match on a percentage basis?
I believe it's close to like a 70-30 percentage maybe. I actually I'm not for sure on that, but I could follow up with the council.
That's the way you would get my yes vote. And I don't understand why you wouldn't weight it accordingly.
90% of the project is outside of the city limits for what they're asking for this project. So when Joshua gave the presentation last month and showed you guys the graphic of where the improvements were going to be and where they were located, the discussion at that time was essentially the council's general consensus was supporting doing the match relief reductions so that it's consistent with it. Say, for example, Larimer County was making the application, that is the percentage that they would get from that. But because it's technically a Fort Collins project, they have that higher percentage. So I think the recommendation was trying to help support using the 25% match reduction for the project. And I'll just remind the council that this then, if you do support the request, it then goes to Transportation Commission, and then they have to go in and present that and get their approval for that request as well.
And out of curiosity, with the loss of the RAISE grant, are you 100% certain that the project will be built? Why should we encumber our monies until you are confident that it will be built?
Well, to be honest, I don't feel certain in a lot of things these days, but we are working very hard, like I mentioned, with our funding partners to understand what other funding sources might be out there. So we do have close to $2 million in funding that's already been awarded and appropriated by the city of Fort Collins to go towards the project, and we are looking for other funding sources to fill in the remainder of the gap.
Elizabeth, help me understand what happens to the money that we control. Is it encumbered? Is it taken off the board for other projects when we commit it to this one that may or may not be built?
So I don't want to, because they're almost like two separate actions that you guys would have to consider. So the request before you tonight is strictly, they received MMOF funding and they're asking for match relief request. Secondarily, now that this has occurred, what we have in our TIP currently is going to require a TIP amendment based on those federal funds being modified. So we'll either have to come back to the council with a TIP amendment, essentially saying this is now how the funding is going to be reflected as a result of those federal funds being rescinded. I would say I think everybody's still trying to work through what is actually going to happen and how that works. We brought it up with the state today at Stat Commissioner Stevens asked staff, like what is happening with these projects, and they haven't really even got to where they've thought it through. I mean, the response was, oh, well, we haven't really talked about it. So I think that we will be bringing back probably a secondary request to you guys collectively, specific to this project regarding a TIP amendment. I think really tonight, at its most fundamental level is, they received MMOF. That MMOF isn't going away, and they're asking for a 25% match relief request for that, for you guys to forward a recommendation to Transportation Commission. And so I don't want to necessarily conflate it. It's not holding up any other funding. This is the funding they've already been awarded.
Okay. So yeah, and if it's 90% in the county, then yeah, it should have the county match and not the city. So I'd be supportive of that request.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions for Annabelle or about this project? All right, is there a motion for this item?
Yeah, I move we approve this resolution for a change from 50% to 25% in matching funds.
Second.
Happy to second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed say no. Anyone abstaining from the vote? All right, that motion passes. Thank you, Annabelle. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Our next item is item number 16, 2022 to 2026 NFRMPO safety performance measures. And this is Michaela presenting today?
Yes, this
right?
is Michaela.
Okay.
I'm logged into the staff account, so that's where I'm speaking from right now. So I'm coming to you all tonight seeking approval for Resolution 2026-2. So per federal requirements, we must set targets for 5 safety performance measures for the 2022 to 2026 period by February 27th. And so to set these targets, we can either support the CDOT targets or set our own regional targets. Based off of last month's conversation with you all and TAC have agreed that setting regional safety performance measure targets using that ETS forecast equation, that was option 2 that I presented to you all. That's how we've set these targets for the past 2 years already. That's what's preferred for this target setting period. So with that, that would put our number of fatalities at 45, the rate of fatalities at 1.129, the number of serious injuries at 295, the rate of serious injuries at 7.625, and the number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries at 50. And so I am requesting that Planning Council approve the regional safety performance measure targets for 2022 to 2026 as presented to you all tonight.
Great. Thank you, Michaela. Any questions about this? I think we've discussed this at length, kind of how we wanted to do it. So probably not a lot of questions. I'm not seeing anyone. All right. Is there a motion to support this? It's resolution number 2026-02.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2026-02.
I'll second.
Thank you. There's a motion from Vice Chair Hyde and a second from Councilmember Jenkins. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed with a no? Anyone abstaining? All right, that motion passes. Thank you. Perfect. All right, so now we are on discussion item number 17. It's the US 34 transit study. And I will turn things over to Becky Carrasco, not Tarasco, our transportation planning director. And I believe, is Ian Chase here from HDR as well?
Yes.
Yes.
He's here as well.
Okay.
So I just wanted to, oh, go ahead.
No, I'll just turn it over to you. Yeah, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you and good evening. I just want to do a brief introduction before turning this over to Ian, who has been the project lead on this project from the consultant side. So I've been the project manager on this study on the NPO side. As you and Ian will go through the history of the project as well, since we do have a lot of new members on the council since we started this study. But I did want to bring your attention, this study has gone on a little bit longer than we had initially anticipated due to a pause that we had at the beginning of last year due to some contracting and getting additional funds through DTR, so 5304 funds. So that is why you may have, if you were on council when this started, why this has taken a little bit longer than maybe was anticipated. But I would like to turn it over to Ian to talk through what the history of this project is and where we've ended up.
All right, thank you, Becky. Yeah, I'm Ian Chase. I'm with HDR, and yeah, I'll walk us through this presentation. Becky, are you doing the slides? I'm not sure who's running
no,
it.
Michaela is, but just say next slide whenever you want to move on to the next one.
All right, next slide, Michaela. The US 34 transit plan, as Becky mentioned, it's been ongoing longer than expected, but we are on the verge of wrapping it up. So I'll give a brief recap and then talk about the capital improvements that we've identified associated with this plan, and then talk about some of the planning, the planning that we just wrapped up in regards to first last mile planning and potential future route expansion options. And then I'll also talk about funding and implementation. Next slide. So this is just the project location. This is looking to connect Loveland to Greeley, generally following the US 34 corridor. Next slide. As a part of this study came out as a part of the Link No Co phase 1 study. That study was approved in October 2022, and it was a study that looked at premium transit connections within the North Front Range MPO area. That study identified I believe 13 different potential corridors for improvements, and there were 3 priority corridors that floated to the top. Loveland to Greeley via US 34 was the top priority corridor. Next slide. So phase 2 focused on this US 34 connection, Loveland to Greeley. The purpose, it did kick off in January last year. We worked on it for a full year, had about a 6-month hiatus before we got into task 2 efforts, which I'll go into details on later. Basically, this plan looks at identifying operating scenarios, capital improvements, and phasing options for this transit service. And the result of all this is a guiding document to help in the development and implementation of all the various elements of this proposed route. Some expectations here. This service is not like a local service. It's also not necessarily a BRT service. It's a premium transit service, which could include like a BRT light, which is not necessarily dedicated lanes, the entire corridor, but providing queue jumps or transit signal priorities at intersections. The purpose of all of this is to get fast, reliable, and efficient service from Loveland to Greeley. Next slide. So as we kicked this off last year, we looked into existing conditions initially. So we looked at the current state of transit in Loveland and Greeley and with Bustang. We looked at peer transit systems in the United States. We looked at transit propensity, travel patterns in the North Front Range MPO area. And all of that we pulled together as sort of an existing conditions analysis, and that fed our initial alternatives, which then went through a screening process, a couple of levels to get to a recommended alternative. Next slide. So the evaluation criteria that we looked at, again, 2 levels. The initial level was high level. We looked at key destinations, transit connectivity, ridership potential, the local regional planning documents, and also looked at community support and agency and jurisdiction support. Next slide. So through that initial process, we came up with a few alternatives. I won't get into the details specifically here, but again, they're all going Loveland to Greeley with a couple of variations on the route alignment in Greeley and the extents, the final extents were part of these different alternatives. Next slide. As we looked, we then took those 3 alternatives, went through a more detailed screening effort. You can see all the different elements that we looked at, very typical for this sort of project. Population employment densities, transit connectivities again, ridership estimates, cost estimates, all of those things. Next slide. So the recommended alternative, which many of you have seen, many of you have seen this as I've presented this throughout the last couple of years, but again, I know there are a lot of new folks to this. Essentially, it's an alignment that follows US 34 for the 90% of the corridor. It starts at on the west end in Loveland at the fairly new transit hub at 37th and US 287. It goes down 287, then travels east on 34. It goes by the hospital near I-25 and swings by the north line CDOT mobility hub, and then crosses under I-25, and then past the Centera Mall, and then gets back on US 34, and then travels all the way to, I believe that's 11th, and goes north with stops at UNC, and then at the GET transportation hub in northern Greeley. A couple of the differentiators, a few of the differentiators that stuck out and resulted in this being the recommended alternative. The end-of-line facilities are already in place at these two locations. You have park and rides, operator facilities, bathrooms, stuff like that. Transit connectivity was at the highest level with this alternative, connecting to all the major transit hubs throughout along the corridor. And then the ridership we found in our estimates was the highest on this alternative. Next slide. This is just sort of a recap of all the public and stakeholder engagement efforts that were made throughout the life of this project. We had a couple of public open houses and a public presentation last year. Well, I guess that would be a year and a half ago now, in 2024. Stakeholder engagement, you can see we had a PMT, a TAC. We presented to the US 34 Coalition, the MPO TAC, the CDOT US 34 TAC group was also a part of this. We had many one-on-ones with the various jurisdictions along the corridor. And then you can see a list of some of the key PMT members throughout the last couple of years. Next slide. So all of that was the 2024 work. 2025, we had that 6-month window at the beginning of the year, unfortunately, where we were waiting on funding and approval. We kicked this off in late June, and this effort involved continued coordination with the project team and with the various stakeholders. There's a lot, and you can see the CDOT US 34 TAC is mentioned here. There's a lot going on US 34, various projects that are ongoing. We wanted to coordinate with all of those, all the different stakeholders along the corridor to make sure that the capital improvements that we are identifying would not overlap with other studies, ongoing studies, or construction efforts. And so that's that second bullet. You can see capital improvements. We have a number of designs, conceptual designs and costs that we've developed. And then we also had a few more additional planning tasks that we tackled that I'll get into here. Next slide. This is the schedule for this past year, and long story short, we're at the end. We've got a draft of the final report that'll be sent out tomorrow or Monday for final comments from our PMT and TAC members, and the capital improvements and all of the planning efforts have essentially come to an end, and we will be wrapping this up over the next month. Next slide. So now I'm going to talk about the capital improvements that we've identified. As I had mentioned earlier, this came out of the Link NoCo Phase 1, the initial study. And one of the important goals of that initial study was identifying transit connections and capital improvements that are cost effective, that are generally low cost for a premium transit service that would give you a big bang for little buck, basically. basically trying to give bus service a little bit of a head start, and so that it can be competitive with single occupant vehicles along US 34. So throughout the process, we've identified 5 intersection locations. These locations are all generally east of I-25 and generally west of Greeley, and are in at intersections where there aren't already ongoing efforts from Loveland or Greeley or CDOT. The proposed improvements, like I was mentioning, we were trying to get cost-effective improvements that would really help this service. Bus queue jump lanes, bus on shoulder sections are a key element to these designs, and transit signal priority, basically giving the bus that queue jump at the signals at these 5 locations that are mentioned here, and give the bus that head start, essentially. Next slide. So this is the western half of the corridor, and the large red dots there you can see are the Larimer Parkway intersection along US 34 and the Weld County Road 13, which is Colorado Boulevard, that intersection. Those 2 intersections were identified for capital improvements. On this map, I do want to point out the blue dots show those proposed stop locations. There's 4 on the western end here. There's 3 or 4 on the eastern end as well. The orange dots that you see there, those are intersection improvements that are planned, generally TSP improvements, transit signal priority improvements that are planned by others. Next slide. And this is showing the eastern half of the corridor, and you can see Promontory Parkway, 83rd Avenue, and 65th Avenue. Again, all of these we're looking at TSP and queue jump improvements. On the eastern end here, for those of you who haven't seen this, the stop locations will include the Greeley Mall Transfer Center, UNC, and the Get Transportation Center. In that rectangular box there, you can see the Center Place Mobility Hub study area. Those 2 intersections will become interchanges in the future, and there's a Center Place Mobility Hub right in the middle. Once that is in place, once it's constructed and operational, the Greeley Mall Transfer Center will go away. That's just a temporary stop until that Center Place Mobility Hub is in place. Next slide. This is just a design typical section. Basically, we're looking at only adding maybe 4 feet to either side of the roadway as it approaches these intersections or departs these intersections. That is just enough to allow to expand the shoulder from 10 feet to 14 feet to allow buses and right-turning vehicles to function safely, operate safely within that space. The rest of the general footprint, the typical section of the highway is the same, with 2 general purpose lanes and those shoulders in the middle. Next slide. So these are just some snapshots of the initial 10% conceptual design drawings that our team put together. It's difficult to see this stuff. The final plan does have the full set of designs included in it. The PMT and the TAC have all reviewed these designs and given comments. Along the bottom there, you can see this typical widening section. This is for in the eastbound direction. And again, it's really hard to see, but it does say bus only in the shoulder there. And essentially that widening again would just be taking 10 feet of shoulder and widening it 4 feet to get to that 14-foot section. Each of the 5 intersections have varying degrees of lengths to those Q jump sections. County Road 13, for example, would have the longest Q length section, I believe, at a few thousand feet. I think you all are familiar with how badly traffic can stack up there. This would allow buses to get on that shoulder when there's a hefty queue during the peak period, allow them to go along the shoulder, bypass some of the traffic. There is a bus pocket that is about 50 feet long, I believe, right by that pork chop, the brown pork chop in the designs. The bus would queue up there at a signal. The transit signal priority would allow that bus to then get the green light before general purpose traffic. They would then go into the receiving lane on the other side and then merge back in with general purpose lanes from there. I do want to reiterate, this is, we're looking at these additional, these Q jumps and TSP, the signal priority is essentially located at these 5 intersections, and the rest of the corridor, TSP transit signal priorities have already been in planning stages or are already included in the signals that Greeley, Loveland, and CDOT are control along the corridor, Loveland and Greeley along the corridor. So this is just at these 5 locations. There will not be dedicated bus lanes throughout the corridor because of expense. Next slide. This shows the other 3 locations, Promontory Parkway, 83rd and 65th Avenue. Again, similar story with the bus pockets where necessary, and just allowing the buses to have that on-shoulder operation. Next slide. Just a table that describes the different elements at the 5 locations. And then on the right there are some estimated costs. I'm not going to get into the individual costs. Each intersection varies. 83rd and 65th have lower costs, primarily because we're not looking at Q jumps that are as lengthy, those bus on shoulder sections. The most expensive being Promontory Parkway, Larimer Parkway, Weld County Road 13. The overall price tag we have estimated at $3.5 million for these 5 locations, and then we've given it a range from 2.5 to 5.3 million. In pink, it's kind of hard to see on the bottom right. We have included additional costs to extend the bus on shoulder, the shoulder widening, should Q jumps need to be extended at 83rd and 65th in the future. We've estimated what those additional costs would be. The merge project, changing the at-grade intersections on 34 associated with the merge project to interchanges would alter the way traffic flows and approaches 65th and 83rd Avenue. We're not sure exactly what that traffic flow would look like. So that's why that was not included at this time in the main cost and cost ranges. Next slide. So the additional planning tasks we've been working on, I'll dive right into that. Next slide with the first last mile analysis. First last mile, for those of you who are unfamiliar, it's associated with dealing with the challenge of accessing transit at the beginning and the end of a trip. And it's generally that first and last mile of a trip. So our approach, we looked at industry best practices throughout the country, and then also reviewed the NPO's regional active transportation corridors to help identify those future connections to the 34 stop areas. Next slide. So essentially the final report will include a first last mile strategies toolkit. That toolkit will provide strategies for how to implement first last mile elements and to get people to and from these transit stops more efficiently. There's a few different themes here. The toolkit is broken out by these different themes, whether it's repurposing existing structure or new infrastructure. It's dealing with transportation services, transportation demand management, or if it's just general guidance and policies. Next slide. And then all of those different themes, there are sample strategies within those, whether it's, again, it's repurposing publicly owned land and parking, new infrastructure. A strategy there is bicycle facilities, transportation services, you have micro mobility services, et cetera, et cetera. On the right there, you can see 5 columns with green, yellow, red. There are different area typologies that we wanted to consider. Those are based on the NPOs, how they categorize the different land uses in the region. You have your central business district, urban, commercial, suburban, and rural. These strategies, they operate, they're more applicable on the green dots. They're applicable with the yellow dots, or not necessarily applicable on those red dots. All of this, again, outlined in the final plan, and basically will serve as sort of, again, a toolbox to assist in future planning of what first last mile strategies could be implemented to further boost the transit ridership in the area. Next slide. We also looked at route expansion. You know, through last year, there were multiple locations, stop locations that we deferred. We did not want to fully eliminate them, but we suggested in our recommended alternative, we wanted to limit the number of stops to allow the best possible travel time along the corridor end to end, so that you can build that ridership base. Based on the future, you know, how ridership numbers come back, if the route is successful, expanding the route and adding stops, we definitely want to consider that. So we looked at where we took those deferred stop locations and also threw in a few others that were recommended as well, and took a look at those. We also considered operating plan expansion, which, again, if ridership numbers are strong enough, you could improve the peak period frequencies to provide a higher service during those time periods. Next slide. So the route expansion, those blue dots you can see on this map are those existing stop locations that I talked about. The green dots show potential future stop locations that we have included in our analysis and will be included in that final report. Next slide. And then here you can see this is the base and expansion operating scenario that I spoke to just a second ago. Basically, it's taking a peak frequency of 30 minutes for the initial rollout of this service and increasing it so that it is every 15 minutes that you would see a bus rather than every 30 minutes. This is only during the peak hours, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. during the weekdays. Next slide. This shows the operating cost comparison by increasing that peak period frequency. Annual revenue miles would increase by 220,000, and the gross operating cost would increase from almost 5.3 million to 7.25 million, an increase of almost $2 million. The fleet requirements would also increase. You would have to go from 5 vehicles with a spare to 10 vehicles with 2 spares. While I have this up, I should note Greeley, for those of you that don't know, Greeley did apply for a grant to assist in funding for and purchasing buses. And they did receive that grant and are in the process of purchasing and receiving 5 buses to operate along this corridor. They are to be delivered this year from what I know. Next slide. So the last element that we did here was we were looking into funding options. This slide just lists all the different federal funding options and state funding options. We've outlined this in the plan as well. All of this again to improve for capital funding. Unfortunately, there are few sources available for operations, transit operations. So there really isn't anything listed there. Next slide. We also outline grant application strategy. So for those costs that we were looking at, again, $2.5 million to $5 million range to build those queue jumps and to put in that TSP at those signals. You could bundle the intersections as one project for maximum benefit. That would require some data collection, safety and congestion, looking at safety and congestion along the corridor in order to go for some of these grants. Next slide. And then we also considered improvement prioritization. So for the capital improvements, for those 5 locations, 83rd Avenue and 65th Avenue, one option would be to prioritize those. Those are quick wins where the overall costs are relatively low and impacts to the roadway system are minimal. Or another option would be to address the critical congestion areas. Weld County Road 13, Larimer Parkway, those intersections having the highest congestion. Next slide. So the next steps on this study, essentially within the next couple of days here, we will have wrapped up the draft of the final US 34 transit plan. We will send that out to the PMT and the TAC for comments. Yesterday, Becky presented to the US 34 Coalition. Today, presenting to you all. We're hoping to get comments back from the PMT by January 21st and finalizing the document shortly thereafter, and then initiating the public comment period at the end of January. And then in February, MPO TAC recommendation on February 18th, and then assuming all goes well here, Planning Council adoption in March of this year. And that is it, I believe. Next slide. Yeah, questions and comments.
Thank you, Ian. All right, looks like we have a question from Council Member Kovacs.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you for having me as the alternate. It's my first meeting. I've really enjoyed being here so far. I have some comments that I'm passing along, not from myself, but just as the secondary who's here. But the city submitted comments to the consultant that didn't get incorporated into the study. And we were really wanting those comments incorporated before the study is adopted. And then
which comments were those?
Yep, I do not have that information. Like I said, I'm passing along information that I received just so that somebody from Loveland could be here for this meeting. So I don't have that information.
They were comments from Loveland. Okay.
Yes, from the city of Loveland. Yeah. Sorry about that.
As far as I know, we actually have addressed the comments. They may not have seen them in the final report, but I'll certainly check. We'll certainly check back.
Okay.
With the PMT representatives from Loveland.
Okay, and there's comments that are related to the Larimer Parkway specifically.
Okay.
That's the only other detail that I have at this time.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yes, and then the second thing I wanted to pass along is we do have concerns with the budget for base services. They're just not feasible with the budget that we have, and we were wondering, should there be an attainable scenario included in the plan?
An attainable scenario, should we have considered, well, this, I would say this plan is a plan. If there are elements that can't be funded on the capital improvement side, improving those intersections, the service could still be implemented. I do know that CDOT has funding that they believe they can, and Becky, I don't know if you recall what those funds are related to, but it's in the 10-year plan. And Rich Christie and others could speak to that better than me, but there are some funding dollars out there that could help, could be applied towards those capital improvements. As for the operations, there is funding identified for the first 2 years to operate the buses. And you know, the issue is then continuing into the future, year 3 and on, identifying funds at that point. Becky, do you have any thoughts that you want to share there?
No, you're correct. I believe it's 10-year plan funds. I'm not entirely sure what all that's encompassing. And yes, the city of Greeley did get CMAQ funding through the MPO to purchase the buses. They could come back and get additional funds through CMAQ through a call for projects process if they were awarded those funds to have operations for those as well. So additional operations, I should say.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we'll make sure, you know, Ian, that, you know, we'll be in touch about making sure that those Loveland comments get incorporated into the document.
Okay.
Let's see. Councilmember Jenkins.
Yeah, I just had, I didn't hear anything about operational revenue and, you know, going to the faster 15-minute service during essentially rush hours. I saw additional miles, but I didn't see any discussion of additional income.
Yeah, the dollars, I believe, and I'm trying to take a peek at that. The costs that we calculated are assume a certain revenue associated with the operations. So there's a standard formula that was used, and I would have to check in with our operations planner on that. But it is outlined in the report, and those costs do include an account for how much revenue would be earned from
So
transfusion.
as I understand what you're saying is the cost would go up, the revenue would go up, but the costs go up faster than the revenue.
That's a standard transit issue, unfortunately. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions? Did Johnstown maybe have a question? I had heard that they might want to have a question here. Maybe not. I have a couple questions if there's no questions, and then we'll see if any other questions come up after I ask my question. So this is consistent with what Greeley has in mind. I mean, with regard to the service that they want to provide. Is that correct?
It is to an extent, and Greeley, Loveland, and I believe Johnstown have an IGA that they have worked on. And I'm not fully sure of where they stand right now. And I'm looking to see if I do see Hannah Feldman on the call, and maybe Hannah can speak to this. Initially, Greeley was looking at running the line only to the I-25 Centera Mobility Hub. But I do know there's an IGA that was signed recently. Hannah, are you on, and do you have anything that you could add there?
Yeah, so just for transparency with this group, when we applied to the CMAQ dollars back in, I think it was 2023, there were a lot of unknowns with this route. And all of our service planning that we've done was assuming that we would only be going to that mobility hub with this pilot stage of funding. The amount of funding that we received for annual operations is significantly less than that 30-minute headways that are shown in the plan. So we're really focusing on commuter service to start because that's what is feasible with our operations. Will Jones is also on the call, so he's welcome to jump in, but we're really trying to balance what we've been awarded with CMAQ dollars to get the service started, along with providing the best service we can with those financial constraints.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did a great job in covering overview of the route and plan. I will add that the buses have been delivered. We received 5 of those. Hannah and team applied for and received a 5339 grant. And so they're here and we're ready to start and planning on starting in Greeley specifically in about August of this year. So nice job, Hannah. Thank you.
What level of service do you get from five additional buses? I mean, what's the frequency and kind of
When we applied, we were assuming similar levels of service as the Pooter Express, which is really geared to that AM, PM commuting hours. We're hoping for 45-minute headways based off of the route service planning that we've done and the level of operational funding we have during those commuting hours.
Great, thank you. Looks like Commissioner James has a question. Go ahead.
Thanks, Commissioner Stevens. I'm not Johnstown nor am I Loveland, but last night at the I-25 coalition, or kind of in between our coalitions, there's so many. Keith from the city of Loveland showed us kind of a neat map that shows, is it Kendall Parkway that will then extend around and kind of plug in down to the
Larimer.
stoplight there?
Yes.
Keith, are you on?
It was Larimer Parkway.
It was Larimer Parkway. Was that included in that study? Because for me, as the corridor gets more congested, as the closer they get to the interstate, that's a game changer as that connects up to the mobility hub there at Centera. Was that included in this study?
So you're suggesting is that the north leg of that Larimer Parkway intersection and that new planned roadway that Loveland has that would go to the north and connect to Kendall, was that included?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it was considered, and we designed the route based not on that being in place just because it was an unknown at the time. But that connection certainly could and would potentially impact the route. You could go along that new connection, that new roadway to get to US 34 rather than going through the Centera Parkway intersection with US 34. Now, all that being said, if this route is successful and there's thought of expanding stops, I know Johnstown would love to have a stop, and this is a stop that we've noted in the plan that should be considered, that would be to the south. The route would then still stay on Centera if that new stop was put in the Johnstown Plaza to the south. But yes, as soon as that intersection, that roadway connection is constructed, the operations, Loveland, Greeley, can get together and discuss shifting the operations to avoid the Centera intersection.
Okay, thanks.
Does that answer your question?
To a certain extent, other than I think the entire nature of your study, quite frankly, changes when that comes online, because that's a game changer for that area, especially if you truly want to foster the connection to the multi-million-dollar mobility hub that we built there at Centera. I mean, that's a game changer.
Right. It definitely could save some of the travel time of the bus. Now we are, there are transit signal priority elements being included in all of those signals through there, which hopefully would aid the bus, even if it stays on the route that we've identified and the bus continues on Centera Parkway. It would hopefully could trip that TSP and get priority going through that signal.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And I will just say in the comments, it looks like Nicole from Loveland said that is the intersection that needs updating in this study. So, looks like there's still some outreach to be done and some other things. So the plan can be amended or updated or, as you get some additional information, right? I mean, is that the intent? It's a draft. It's
Well,
still
and
a work in
yeah, I
progress.
want to point out that this is a plan, and the design elements that it's 10% design. It's conceptual design that we have included at these 5 locations, and by no means does that design mean this is what we're going with. As Loveland works on that intersection, and if they do indeed have Kendall Parkway come down and tie in at the Larimer Parkway intersection, then a new design would need to be put together. And I'll have a conversation, Nicole, if you're free at some point, let's have a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can follow up with you on this.
Great,
absolutely. Thank you.
Looks like Mayor Klein from Windsor has a question.
Yes. Was there in the study on the stops any talk about just the, instead of driving by Ames and throwing students out at the campus there on County Road 17, of maybe stopping and letting them go to class?
Yeah. So
just wondering.
Yeah, of course. The problem, the issue that this sort of service has is feeding all of serving all the different potential riders. We initially want to have designed an operating plan and have included stops that we felt were the biggest bang for the buck and would get the ridership at a level that would be hopefully sustainable. I do know historically there was a transit route along this corridor that tried to be the best of all worlds and had many stops along the corridor, and the travel time was an issue and it did not perform well. We are 100% not excluding stops and locations and saying that those stops can't be added in the future. And that's part of the beauty of bus operations versus, say, rail. A bus route can be adjusted. New stops can certainly be identified. And this plan is by no means precluding, saying that you cannot have a stop at these different locations. Does that answer your question? I mean, this is definitely not something that's in stone and means that these other potential stop locations can't have a stop in the future.
Well, would it be something that I guess, if there was a survey or there was actually, when you guys bring this out to people, if that campus participated, would you stop? Would you use this service? I mean, it's kind of a captive audience. So, I feel like if you're using UNC as one point and you literally are just driving like half a block away from that other campus.
Yeah, and it's certainly something, I understand what you're saying. That is something that in the future, comments as this, the talk of this as we're rolling this out is like a pilot program, essentially. And this is the initial plan, but certainly if there's feedback, and I think Greeley and who would be operating this service would 100% agree. If there's feedback that we're missing potential riders, and it's clear that is a concern, I don't see why that wouldn't be considered shifting the alignment.
Okay.
That's a good question. That was a great question. Thank you,
Good
Mayor.
question, Julie. Thank you.
Yeah, because I mean, I think that those are the kind of places where people would take public transportation, right? And need public transportation, and tuck and roll is not an option. So I'm wondering if we can, I know this is not, we've called this sort of BRT light or something like that. And I do think when it comes to like funding options, I'm thinking about funding with the NAPME, for example, they're really wanting to fund bus rapid transit. Is there a reason that we're not really referring to it as bus rapid transit? I mean, is it because of the frequency or, but I think it would behoove us to kind of talk about the elements that are bus rapid transit to align ourselves up for good funding opportunities.
Bus rapid transit typically is associated with a standalone bus only or bus / hot lane, HOV lane, something like that, along the majority of the corridor. That's sort of the issue here. And that's, if you look back at the previous study, the whole point of all of this was what was referred to as a premium transit, which again is looking at implementing capital improvements that are lower cost and can give the bus that extra, help with reducing the travel times, essentially. The costs would be exponentially larger if you're looking at a dedicated bus lane from Greeley all the way to Loveland. And so that's why we have been referring to this as premium transit, sometimes also called BRT Light, because it doesn't have that full element of a bus only lane the whole stretch.
Okay, thanks for explaining that.
Yeah.
Anything else for Ian? Well, it looks like we'll try to make maybe some changes and incorporate some of the things that we've heard, and clearly if there's other things that are heard, to make sure that the document is, I think, as complete as it can be, knowing that it's a plan and that if there are, major changes, those would have to change, but also really hearing from the communities that they'd like to see some changes. So thanks to Ian for, kind of meeting with Loveland and making sure that we hear their voice in this document.
Yeah, and real quick before I let you go, again, we one of those slides I think showed, all the different stakeholders that we have met with throughout this process, and we really did get lots of feedback back and forth. There was a lot of back and forth on which stops would be included, which would not be, and it was definitely a balancing act to a certain extent. And I just want to reiterate one last time that this is a plan that certainly can be adjusted and modified in the future as well.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we will look forward to, the adoption in March and any further comments that come from TAC or the communities as it goes out to those folks. So thank you.
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 18, and that's Cecil Gutierrez, our Transportation Commissioner. Cecil?
Yes. Sorry. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
We can both see you and hear you.
All right. I had a little technical difficulty there for a second. Sorry. Thank you, Chair Stevens, and appreciate it. Have a really short report this afternoon. In December, we had a very short meeting due to the holidays, so nothing really to report from the December meeting. Just a reminder that next Wednesday afternoon, there will be a joint session of a joint study session of the Transportation Commission and the CTIO Board, looking at the 10-year plan for regions 1, 2, 4, which will be basically the eastern part of the state. And that no action will be taken at that particular point in time. There will be suggestions and feedback from both CTIO and the commission at that particular point in time. Other than that, the 10-year plan is expected to be adopted March, April timeframe. Originally, it keeps getting pushed back just a little bit. So March or April, and I'll keep the council informed about when that will happen. I think, as I've reported before, the top two probably most discussed items will be the I-25 and the I-270 managed lane projects, and that's the main reason that the CTIO board and the TC will be meeting jointly on this particular part of the plan, is that a bulk of the funding for both of those projects is expected that it will probably come from CTIO. So really, that's it. But I wanted to take a moment of personal privilege here with your permission, Madam Chair. And as you all know, that in July, my seat on the CTIO board transferred from being governor appointed to being transportation commission appointed, and there was a vacancy, and Tricia announced earlier that she had been appointed by the governor to take that seat, and I am so thrilled to welcome Tricia to that board. She will be a great addition to the board. So Tricia, welcome aboard and congratulations. And that's to some extent my report this evening, unless there are questions.
Thank you, Transportation Commissioner Gutierrez. Any questions for him? All right. Yes. Well, we're happy to have Councilmember Canonico in that role too. To have a voice from North Front Range NPO is always a good thing. So, thanks for throwing your name in the hat, Tricia, and thanks for winning that seat. We will move on to the STAC report. We had Liz. Liz, is there anything you want to mention from STAC this morning?
You asked some great questions at STAC, so I think it'll be a great year. And it was just, I think the most important thing I took away from everything today was the MMWELF funding, but we've talked at great length about that as it affects here. So I think the letter is just a great addition.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hyde, about that. Yeah, I think that there was a lot of informational opportunities. I think the only item we did vote on was this letter to try to keep MMOF funding, a letter to the JBC to prioritize that funding. We know how valuable it's been in our communities. So we got the 10-year plan development for regions 3 and 5, and learned a lot about CDOT's cameras and the truck chain station overview. So a lot of information on those two items. Any questions on the STAC meeting this morning? All right. CTIO is a written report, and we'll move on to Front Range Passenger Rail, and that will be Councilmember Canonico and John Mallow.
I understand. I'll go first this time around. Our last board meeting was December 19th. Most of the time was spent on outsourcing contracts, that sort of thing. Is just refresh your memory. We received $3 million from CDOT for operational cost, and so we've spent a lot of time, a lot of contract money on outsourcing particular roles and responsibilities. So we spent a lot of time on that. In the future, we will have a next board meeting on the 23rd, and more importantly, on January 29th, we're going to have a kind of an in-person staff meeting, board meeting, to go over the oversight and what we're going to focus on in 26. So we've all received a three-page survey that we're supposed to complete before that, which is fantastic. I think it'll take a little bit of time, but well worth it, and it'll help our new general manager. So that's all I got. Tricia, if you have anything else.
No, I think you covered it pretty well. Thank you, John.
That's it, Commissioner.
Great, thank you. Any questions for these two representatives? I was going to ask you, with the loss in funding for some of those safety improvements on those railroad lines, are there talks of how to make up for that loss of funding? Because I want to say it was like around $65 million.
Yeah, certainly that's going to hurt, and we haven't really got too specific on it, but that needs to be looked at it from a grant standpoint or other sources, just like so many other things we have going on in the state. So yeah, we'll have to we'll see where that lands. Good question.
Just curious.
We should probably know more in our next meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, so fresh when that all happens.
Right. No, exactly. I'm sure. I mean, it's not like you can look in your couch cushions and come up with 65 million. So I'm sure they're thinking on how to do that. Okay. Well, thank you.
Mhm.
So our last item is to move into executive session. And do we need a motion to do this, I believe? Is that right, Elizabeth?
Yes. Yeah. Do you have the script again? Do you want me?
I did want to, if I may, I'm sorry. This is Becky. Before you move into the executive session, if all of the council members could make sure you're muted and your cameras are off in GoTo, but stay in this meeting because you'll have to come back in here to close out the council meeting, and then go into the Teams meeting once you go into executive session.
So we can't just make the motion to go into executive
No,
session and say we're not coming back? Okay.
You have to. Well, you can if you want to. That's also fine.
Okay, because I mean, we've done that in our meetings. We've said, we'll move into executive session and we're not coming back to close out this meeting, so we won't be back. So we kind of adjourn this meeting and then the we end executive session and don't come back. Are people comfortable with that? All right. I see head nods, which is good. All right. I have the language, but does anyone else have the language? Does somebody want to make a motion to move us into to executive session? Should I just do it? I can just do it probably, right? All right. I move that this
Madam Chair, to stay in the line with parlance, is you would suggest a motion and then one of us could make it.
Okay. How about I suggest a motion? All right, let's do it that way. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner James. I suggest, so here's the motion as a suggestion to move into executive session to consider personnel matters pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 24-6-402-4F regarding the contract of the executive director and not involving any specific employee who has requested discussion of the matter in open session, any member of this body or any elected official, the appointment of any person to fill an office of this body or of an elected official or personnel policies.
Madam Chair, so moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there a second? All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Say no. Okay. Anyone opposed say no. Anyone abstaining? All right, the ayes have it, and we will move into executive session. I will be adjourning this meeting. We will not be coming back to this meeting, and we will just move into the executive session and finish out there.
And
all right.
That's with Teams.
And that's what? With
It's
Teams.
the Teams link, yeah, in your calendar.
So yeah, so go out of this, go find the link in your calendar or your invite and go into that next meeting. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. See y'all there. Thanks.